Hello, everyone. This is Ariane Rathsack, Director of MBA and Professional Programs for Forte, and I am pleased to welcome you to Forte's Women Lead webinar series. A little about Forte for those who may be new to the series. Forte has been around for about 15 years, and Forte's community of motivated and inspiring women, 100,000 women and counting, is changing the balance of power in the workplace. We open doors for women to reimagine what they can achieve in business, from launching first jobs to advancing to the C-suite. Through business education, role models, professional networks, and leadership training, Forte shows women how to build the credibility, skills, network, and confidence to thrive as leaders and to change the status quo. Joining us today from Colorado is Jody Glickman. Jody is passionate about developing leaders. As a keynote speaker, entrepreneur, CEO, and founder and author, she has trained tens of thousands of the brightest minds in this country. Her groundbreaking curriculum delivers transformational strategies for professionals to influence, advance, and lead in the 21st century workplace. She is the author of the critically acclaimed book, Great on the Job, What to Say, How to Say It, and the Secrets of Getting Ahead, and she is a writer for the Harvard Business Review. So Jody, I welcome you back. I know we've had you on before, so I will turn this webinar on over to you.
Thank you, Ariane. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. I am excited to be here with all of you. Thank you to Forte. I have been a long-standing partner working with the Forte Foundation, and I am always thrilled to work with such bright, talented, motivated, and dedicated women. So welcome to the art of the pitch, how to win them over every time. I am excited to talk to you today about how to pitch yourself in a compelling yet effortless way. And the pitch is something that is critically important to you at every stage of your career, whether you are interviewing for that first job, whether you are raising capital for a startup that you want to build, or whether you are pushing to get into the C-suite of your organization. And so we're going to talk today about a strategy that is going to put some real parameters around how you can create a compelling personal pitch. And how you can deliver it effectively. But I want to start and tell you a little bit about myself so that you have some additional background and context about why I have seen this work dozens, hundreds, thousands of times, and why I'm potentially uniquely situated to be the one delivering this information to you. So, Ariane, thank you for that very generous and lovely introduction. I'll tell you all a little bit more about myself, some things that maybe you don't know or that aren't in the standard bio. So I actually started my career as a Peace Corps volunteer in Latin America in a little town called Curarrehue with one phone and one road in southern Chile. And from there, I wound up transitioning to become an investment banker at Goldman Sachs. So not the likeliest of career paths for most Peace Corps volunteers, and one that left a lot of people scratching their heads as I explained that I had gone from the Peace Corps to Goldman Sachs. The other interesting thing about that as it relates to the pitch is I actually got an F on my finance final in business school. And so for those of you who are on the line today who are in B School or B School graduates, you know how hard it is to actually fail anything in graduate school. But I did. I managed to get an F on that finance final, and yet I still was able to talk my way into a job at Goldman Sachs. I still was able to pitch myself effectively. I also spent time at the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C., working as a policy analyst. And from there, I transitioned into a summer intern role at ExxonMobil. Again, another one of those total head scratchers, like who goes from EPA, where we are promoting healthy air quality, to ExxonMobil, one of the largest oil companies in the world. And yet I had a compelling story to make that happen. The interesting thing about that one is I actually got that job without interviewing. I met the treasurer of ExxonMobil at a networking event while I was in business school. I went up and introduced myself to him. I talked about my interest in global energy policy and the work I had been doing at the EPA and in the Peace Corps. And he looked at me and he said, "Jody, why aren't you on my interview list tomorrow?" And whatever answer I came up with at the time, it worked because he called me the next day and he offered me the job. And then the last data point I'll give you is that I did get my MBA at the Johnson School at Cornell, which was an absolutely amazing experience. But while I was applying to business schools, I was very nervous about how I was going to finance my education. I was coming off of 5 years in the public sector, both Peace Corps and EPA. I applied to the Johnson School and I was admitted, but there was a leadership development program that I was extremely interested in called the Park Fellows Leadership Program. And it was a scholarship for students with a demonstrated interest in community service and leadership development. And I thought I was the perfect candidate, given my background in public service. But I applied to the Johnson School, I was accepted, and I wasn't given the fellowship. And I was devastated because I really felt like, A, that I was the right candidate for that program, but B, I had financial challenges. So this was back in 2000 when people used to pick up their phones when you would call unannounced. And so I called the director of the Park Fellows Leadership Program, and I lobbied for my candidacy. The director of the program, Clint Seidel, he answered the phone. We wound up having an hour conversation about what I wanted to do with my career going forward, what I wanted to contribute to the Johnson School and the Park Fellows program, and where I had come from. And the next day, I got a phone call offering me a full ride scholarship for $72,000 to go to business school. So, 3 data points about my background. And they're not to tell you that I am super lucky or super talented or amazing. The reason I share these stories with you is for the simple fact that I believe and I see every day in the workplace that technical skills are check-the-box skills. Technical skills are a commodity. They are table stakes. You are never going to get promoted because of your technical skills. You're never going to talk your way into your dream job because of your technical skills. You're never going to raise capital or get people on board with your next idea or creative project because of your technical skills. Technical skills are the baseline. Soft skills are the skills that are life-changing. Soft skills are the skills that will get you hired into a new role. They will get you promoted into a new role. They will help you become who you want to be in your career and have impact beyond your wildest dreams. And I would say a killer pitch, right, which is absolutely a huge part of soft skills, will win you love and money. And I will stand by that every day, right? Because here's the deal. You have one singular goal in your career and every step of the way in everything you do. And for those of you who are applying to business school, right, it's all about that application and becoming a compelling candidate and getting accepted. For those of you who are in business school, it's all about that next job. Why did you make that? Why did you go back to school? What transition are you hoping to make? And for those of you who are alumni, who are junior talent in your organization or who are becoming senior leaders, you have one singular goal along the entire continuum of your career, and that is to make people love you. In a totally professional, platonic, work appropriate, no one's getting sued kind of way. So let's just be very clear about that. Great on the Job is all about making people love you at work. Because when I love you, right, if you figure out a way to make your boss, your mentor, your sponsor, when I love you, I will do anything and everything in my power to help you succeed. I will mentor you. I will sponsor you. I will champion your cause. I will hire you potentially or make a referral to someone who has an opening. I will pay you well. I will promote you. I will give you a raise. Good stuff happens when you make people love you. And within the context of your pitch, right, if you have a killer, compelling pitch, then you are going to get whatever you are pitching, right, whether it is a new job, it is a new role within your organization, it is backup, or support for an idea or initiative, you will make it happen. So, right, here's the question to ask you. I know we've got a lot of folks on the line today. I'm thrilled to have you all here and even more who've registered. But you are all probably at very different stages, right? Some of you are pitching yourself for a new job or a new role. Some of you are pitching a business venture or a creative endeavor. Whatever you are doing, the Great on the Job strategy is universal. It can help you no matter what that end goal is you are aiming for. So let me ask you a question. I want you all to take a moment, and I want you to think about a high-stakes conversation that you're going to have within the next, let's call it, month. So whether it is that new job, whether it is a new role within your organization, whether it is getting support for an idea or initiative or a creative endeavor, what do you need to pitch? And I want you to just take 30 seconds right now, and I want you to write down on your iPhone, or if anyone still has a pen and paper next to them, I want you to write down 2 or 3 things that you are going to include in that pitch. And then do me a favor, please, and raise your hand when you're finished. And I'm going to just start our little shot clock here. Okay, I'm going to stop us, and let's thank you, everyone, for raising your hand. You can put your hands down, please, because you'll need that function again. And let me ask you this question. Thanks for putting your hands down. How did you do? On a scale of 1 to 10, if you were going to give that pitch to someone, right, and you led with the 2 or 3 things that you wrote down, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? And just I want you to have that number in the back of your head. And I'll tell you this, when I'm in front of a live audience doing this, and I ask that question, if I say how many of you are in the sort of 8, 9, 10 range, I usually get a very small percentage of people who raise their hand and say, Jody, my pitch was super strong, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm in that 8, 9, 10 range. And when we go to the next range, the 5, 6, 7, I get about 25% of the people who will tell me they're in the 5, 6, 7. And then the vast majority tend to be below that 5, which there is no shame in that. That's why we're on the phone today going through this webinar. But here's my promise to you. My promise to you is that by the end of the webinar today, within the next 45 minutes, which is a really tall order, that you are going to be in the 8, 9, 10 category, or you're going to know how to get there. So that's my promise to you. You hold me to it, and we'll get feedback at the end of the webinar whether or not that transpired. So let me do this now. Let me give you a pop quiz. Here's the situation. Let's assume that you spent 3 years working in marketing for a technology company. You left your position to help launch a new venture after 3 years with a friend and become an entrepreneur. While you were doing the, quote, entrepreneur thing, you started a fund to manage your money, your own 401k. And you realized that you both liked managing money and you were good at it. You now decide that you want to do this full time, and you're going to go back to business school to make the transition. So how would you introduce yourself to recruiters in investment management if this is you? Let's look at a sample pitch, and then I want you to tell me what you think. So, hi, my name is Jody Glickman. Let's assume I'm talking to a recruiter at Fidelity, let's say. Hi, my name is Jody Glickman. It's so nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on campus. I actually spent 3 years working in marketing in the high-tech space, and then I branched out on my own as an entrepreneur. Recently, however, I realized that the startup world wasn't really for me, and I've decided that now I want to focus on investment management. So here's my question. Straw poll, how many of you think that was a good pitch? Let's raise your hand if you think that was a good pitch. And I'll tell you where the numbers come out. Okay, we've got a few hands going up. Okay, we had about 4 or 5 of you. Now, how many of you think this is kind of a meh pitch? Not very good. Raise your hand if you think this, okay, yeah. We are at, oh my God, literally we just crossed 100 hands go up in like 0 to 5 seconds. Okay, yes, you are right. You all are absolutely right. This is a meh pitch. This is not a great pitch. So tell me this, write into the chat box if you can. Do we have ability for folks to write into the chat box, Arian? I don't know.
Yeah, they can write into, there's a chat box that they can pick up, and they can put something to all participants, then everyone can see it.
So let's see. Tell me what you think was wrong with this pitch, and I'm going to see if I can see it. Erin, if not, I'll let you read them. Let's see.
Sure.
I see a little chat box here. So if you don't mind, okay, let's see. I see them coming up. Okay. Negative, startup not for me. Okay, rather boring. What does background provide to help the company succeed? Great point. Puts a negative spin on your startup information. It was irrelevant. Too linear, no emotion, not gripping enough. Thank you. I love it. You guys are right. This was Makes it seem like the decision is on a whim. Awesome. Thank you so much. They didn't get directly to the point. They weren't marketable. Perhaps provide more information on what you have done this far. Okay, you nailed it. You all nailed it. That was not a good pitch. Now let me ask you a question before we unravel the way to do an awesome pitch. What do most people start with when they introduce themselves? And this is what happens 99% of the time, and I did this in the sample pitch I gave you. Most of the time, 99 out of 100 times, people start with our background, right? We start by telling you what we've done in our life, what we studied, where we went to school, where we came from. And if we go back to my pitch here, right, I said, hi, I'm Jody Glickman. I spent 3 years working in marketing, and then I became an entrepreneur, and then I realized the startup world wasn't for me. So we spend a lot of time talking about our backstory. But today what we're going to do is we are going to flip our pitch on its head. And the way that you're going to give a compelling, interesting, thoughtful, and memorable pitch heretofore forevermore is you are going to start with your destination. Forevermore, you are going to look forward when you are pitching someone, and you're going to tell me what you're excited about doing next, what you care about, what you're passionate about, and what your goals and aspirations are going forward. It's all about your destination. So a better introduction for the recruiter at Fidelity would have been, hi, I'm Jody Glickman, and I'm looking for a position in investment management. I manage my own money. I've been doing it for the past 3 years, and I've had strong returns year over year, averaging 20% return on my money. Now, raise your hand. Let's see, everyone, put your hand down if you haven't, please. I'll give you a second to get rid of these. And then do me a favor. Raise your hand if you think this is a more compelling way to start the conversation with the recruiter at Fidelity. And let's see those numbers. There they go, right? Climbing into the hundreds in a matter of seconds. This is a much more powerful way to start the conversation. Or, right, hi, my name is Jody Glickman. I'm launching a CBD-based beverage company with children with ADHD. Our products are going to help kids blank, right? They're going to help them do something. It is all about looking forward. So let me ask you this question. If I led with either one of those, right, if I led with I'm looking for a position in money management, I've been managing my own money for the past 3 years and I've had great returns, or I'm launching a CBD-based beverage company for kids with ADHD, tell me this. Are you interested now? Raise your hand if you are interested. Yeah, right? The numbers are just climbing off the charts. That is the way that you hook someone in. That is the way you get their attention. That is how you craft your pitch. And so here it is, right, the big reveal. The great on-the-job strategy for delivering an effective and compelling pitch, no matter what you are pitching, whether it is yourself or your ideas, is you want to always lead with the destination. And Great on the Job is all about three-step strategies always, because that's what we remember and that's what we can put into practice. And so it's not to say that your background isn't important. It is. But your background is not what you lead with. You start with your destination. You look forward. Then you go to your backstory. And we'll talk about what the difference is between your backstory and your background. And then the way you make it really compelling is you bring it all together for me and you connect the dots. You make sense of it for me, why you are the perfect candidate for this role at this point in time with this organization right now. So visually, here's what it looks like. You look forward. You lead with your destination. Then, and only then, do you go to your backstory and tell me about all of the amazing things you've done in your career. And then finally, you connect the dots and bring it all together for me. So let's revisit our conversation with the Fidelity manager or recruiter, right? So here's the way I'd start. Let's assume we're at some, cocktail reception. Hi, it's so nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. My name is Jody Glickman, and I'm looking for a position in investment management. I've been managing my money for the past 3 years. I love it. I have great returns, and this is what I want to do full time. And then the Fidelity recruiter says, wow, that's super interesting. Tell me more. Have you been working in investment management? Well, actually, before business school, I worked for a startup, and I spent time in marketing for a small technology company. However, and I'm going to connect the dots for you. However, right, my analytical skills have really been what drives me, and I found that I'm actually more passionate about finance than I am about marketing or high tech. I think this opportunity with Fidelity is a great way for me to combine my natural talent with an industry that really speaks to me. So raise your hand. Let's put all the hands down. I see a lot of people with their hands up. Do me a favor and put them down. Thank you. And as a matter of course, if you don't mind, put them down after we vote each time so we can start with a clean slate. Let me ask you this question. If this is the way I introduce myself, right, and this is my story, do you want to have a further conversation with me? Raise your hand if you think yes, and I'm going to get onto your interview list, or I'm going to have a follow-up conversation. Okay, we're at over 100, right, have raised their hands. Yeah. So amazing. This is the way that you can be compelling and interesting. Now, here's my next question for you. Do me a favor and take those hands down. Take them all down, because I have another important question for you. And here it is. Based on your work experience, are you qualified for this position? Raise your hand if you think yes. So, we're kind of torn here, right? We're not even close to the over 100 hands that we've had. Because here's the thing. You worked in marketing. You worked in technology. You've never worked in finance. You've never worked in money management. However, your pitch is going to get you in that door because you have made a connection. You have presented yourself in a way that is compelling and impactful, even though you don't have directly relevant experience. And that is the beauty of the pitch. This is about the story that you sell. And the story is authentic to you. It's not made up or inauthentic, but it is absolutely about the story you sell. So let's look at the destination backstory and connect the dots in a little bit more detail. So destination, here are some questions to prompt your thinking. What are you excited about today or going forward? Why do you want to work in consulting or marketing or banking or social entrepreneurship? Or why do you want to raise money, and why is your venture going to be totally game-changing for you as an entrepreneur? Those are the questions you need to start with. Those are the prompts to help you figure out what your destination is. Your backstory, that's all about what's interesting and unique to you. How or why are you an excellent candidate for this role or a partner for me to start a business with? And don't just focus on industry or experience, right? You can think about your skills, and we'll come back to that. And then lastly, connect the dots for me. How does it all make perfect sense, right? How do your past, present, and future all fit together? So let's look at each of these one in a little bit more detail. Your destination. Here's the thing about your destination that's surprising to so many people. Your destination is actually the hardest part of your pitch, right? The what you want to do and the why. So maybe, right, are you looking to broaden your perspective or expand your impact? Are you looking to disrupt the health-based beverage industry, right, that CBD product? Or are you looking to use your digital marketing skills to empower women entrepreneurs in the Middle East? Maybe you're hoping to launch the next LinkedIn platform for tweens, or put your academic theories into practice working in the developing world. Whatever it is that you want to do, you have to communicate that front and center. That is the hardest part of your pitch, is understanding what it is that you really want to do. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. Pardon me, I didn't want to do that in all of your ears. Okay, so that's really the biggest question you have to ask yourself. And the biggest challenges, right, that I see over and over when I'm talking to students in undergraduate institutions, when I'm at MBA programs, when I'm out in the corporate world, is what is it that you really want to do, and why do you want to do it? And I can't tell you the number of people that come up to me after I deliver a program on pitching yourself, and they'll say, Jody, I really want to work on Wall Street. Can you talk to me about how to do it? And my first question always is, okay, well, I've been gone from Wall Street now for 12 years, 13 years, so I'm not the best person to talk to, but why do you want to work on Wall Street? And oftentimes they don't have a compelling reason. So you really have to think about, why do you want to do what you want to do? Or what do you love about our products and services? That's another great prompt for you to think about your destination. If you're going to work for a consumer products company, right, or you're going to work in sports marketing, or you're going to work in the beverage industry, what do you love about those products or services? Why do you want to work for Honest Tea or PepsiCo or Dropbox or Reebok, right? Whatever it is. What is it about the products or services that you love? Or, frankly, if you're starting a business, right, if you're trying to become an entrepreneur, what are you going to love about my products and services? Why is what I'm proposing going to be totally game-changing? Or if you're a company that I'm interviewing with, what are you going to love about what I bring to the table? Those are the questions for your destination. So here's my question, of course, which is, do you know your destination? So take 30 seconds, and I want you right now, again, just write down one or two things that you could talk about that would be part of your destination. I'm going to start our stopwatch, and then I want you to raise your hand when you're done. So just take 30 seconds and think about, what is part of your destination that's really compelling? I'm going to move us on. But I really want you to take some time and think about that question, because that is going to be critical to you coming up with a compelling pitch. And if you can't come up with a compelling destination, you're going to have a really hard time getting people on board with who you are and what you want to do. Let's now move to our backstory. So our backstory is where we come from, right? It is our background. But there's a reason I use the term backstory and not background, and it's deliberate, right? There's a big difference between our backstory and our background. Our background is simply what we've done. It's everything that's included in our resume or our CV. But our backstory actually is a story that we want to tell. And the beauty of the backstory is that you're the author, and so you get to pick and choose what you want to include in that story you tell. There are no rules that say that just because you've been teaching high school English for the past 4 years, that that's what you have to lead with when you're interviewing for a job within product design. There's no rule that says you have to walk me through every job you've had along the way, right? The beauty of your backstory is you get to pick and choose what you want to focus on. So I mentioned to you early in our session today that I went from the Peace Corps to Goldman Sachs, and I went from the EPA to ExxonMobil, and now I run a communication training firm. But when I'm talking to people about what I do today as the founder and CEO of Great on the Job, a communication training and leadership development firm that is really trying to build the bench of next generation talent in this country and globally, I don't talk about the fact that I was a Peace Corps volunteer because it's not relevant. I talk about the fact that I write for HBR, or that I talked my way into a job with ExxonMobil, right? Or that I was able to transition from the nonprofit sector into the private sector because of my communication skills. And so here's the thing about your backstory. You have two choices when you're talking about your backstory. You can either go with relevant experience, or you can go with transferable skills. And the beauty of that is that even if you don't have relevant experience, you still have a ton of skills that you can sell yourself on. So many of us, when we are trying to make a career transition, when we are trying to position ourselves for a new role or join a new organization or, branch out on our own, we worry that we don't have the relevant experience necessary, right? I went into investment banking. I had never worked in finance in my life, but for a summer internship at ExxonMobil. I started my business, Great on the Job. I had never studied communication. I had never written or talked or thought about leadership development. So in most cases, when we don't have that relevant experience, we question ourselves and we don't feel confident. But all of us, every single one of you, has mad skills when it comes to transferable skills, and you can sell yourself on either one. So if you have relevant experience, then by all means talk about it, use it, sell yourself on it. Maybe you led a product management team for Samsung's innovation group. Maybe you built a digital marketing group for a small technology firm in Austin. Maybe you won a business plan for, creating a clean water hydration system. Or maybe you started an online cloud computing company at 19 years old and you are just that smart. For those of us who don't have those kick-ass amazing experiences, right, we have to talk about our transferable skills. So are you a big picture thinker and that's what's going to help you snag this job, or are you great with details? Are you a quick learner or technically proficient, or are you creative and innovative and you are great at spotting trends before the rest of the world sees them? Maybe you're comfortable with ambiguity, or you're a skilled project manager. Whatever it is, every single one of you, each and every one of you, every single one of us, we have transferable skills. And when you're talking about your backstory, a really important thing to do is to be able to sell yourself on those skills. So what is compelling about your backstory? That is what you want to talk about, right? When I was interviewing for jobs on Wall Street, I didn't talk about myself as a Peace Corps volunteer in terms of that being relevant, but I talked about the fact that I was able to work in challenging environments and win people over, or that I was able to come up with creative solutions to problems. Right. I also talked about the fact that I absolutely was a big picture thinker by nature. I lived at 35,000 feet as a strategic thinker, and I loved finance, and banking was a great combination of the two. So what's compelling about your backstory? What do you want to talk to people about? So let me pause there for a moment, and I want to take a break, and I want to give you a chance to ask some questions, and then we're going to go into connecting the dots and giving everyone a chance to practice. So, Arian, do we have a way for people to type in questions as we go?
Sure. Yeah, sure. The best place to type in some questions is there's a Q&A box that's in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And so that's really the best place for you to ask questions, and that's where we'll be watching for that. So again, lower right-hand corner of the screen, it's labeled Q&A.
Okay, so let me just see. Let me know. I don't think I can see it, but Arian, let me know if any questions come in, and I will answer them. Otherwise, you're welcome to start sharing some of your questions now, and then I will answer them at the end.
Okay, so one question has popped up. It says, Julie asked, does your destination change throughout your career?
That's a great question, Julie. Thank you so much for raising that point. Yes, absolutely. Your destination is always changing, or not always changing, but periodically for sure, depending on who you're pitching and what you're pitching. And so one of the things, you sort of jumped the gun, but I'll close us out and tell us that the great news about the pitch is that you can master this, right? You can absolutely learn this strategy and put it into practice. The bad news is that your pitch changes, and you will often need more than one pitch. So if you are starting out early in your career and you're thinking about going into brand management or consulting and you're not sure which one, guess what? You need two pitches. You cannot use the same story for brand managers as you can use for consulting. As you become more senior with an organization, right, it's the idea what got you here won't get you there, right? It is not about you're going to always have to change that story. When I got hired at ExxonMobil, I had to think really strategically and thoughtfully about how was I going to introduce myself to people in Dallas, Texas, coming from the EPA. And I talked about global energy policy and how interested I was in it, and why, as a consumer of energy, I was really interested in seeing the energy industry from the other side, not from the nonprofit regulator side or the government regulator side, I should say, but from the capital, commercial, money-making side of the energy industry. So great question, Julie. The answer is yes. You need a different pitch for different people and at different stages in your career.
Okay, great. We have a bunch of questions that have come in. So someone asked, how do we figure out the why? Why did you do what you were, why did you want, I'm reading this wrong. How did you figure out the why you did what you did, and why you want what you're looking for?
Well, that is a great question, too, and that I'm going to throw back to you is you're the only one who can answer that question, right? If you don't know the why you want to go work at the company you want to work in, become a senior leader, start a business, no one's going to get behind you and support you. And so the why is really the deep digging that you have to come up with. I can't tell you why you should want to work on Wall Street or become a consultant or work in social entrepreneurship. That's not inherent and intrinsic to you. You have to think about it, and this is why the destination's so hard, folks. You have to really dig deep and ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And if you're not able to come up with something compelling, you're going to have a very hard time selling someone else on your story.
Here's another good one. Saharda asks, how do you deal with hiccups to your story or gaps on the resume when pitching yourself for a job? Do you address them head on in the pitch, or do you just wait and let someone ask you about them?
Thank you. I love that question. And let me just make sure I heard it right, Erin. So how do you address hiccups on your resume, meaning like a gap?
Yeah, just the gaps, maybe employment gap or something like that.
Yeah, a gap in experience maybe or a detour or doing something different. So here's what I would say. You address it head on. I always would rather have you be in charge of the conversation than being on the defensive. So play offense, right? I actually took 18 months off to go travel the world. I needed a break from marketing, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. And so you'll see on there that I have 18 months where I wasn't working. However, what that did for me, that 18-month sabbatical was crucial for my personal growth and development, because what I realized when I was away was A, B, and C. I realized that I am passionate about this, or that I want to focus on this, or that my true skill set lies here. You can always turn a negative into a positive. So absolutely, if you have hiccups on your resume, I want you to look at them, and I want you to think about how you turn them into a positive, and then I want you to communicate that to your listener. That's a great question. Thank you. So
here's another one.
Let's just do one more, Erin, and then we'll move on.
Okay, great. This person says, can you mention personal stories as motivation to pursue a certain destination, or is that kind of unprofessional?
Absolutely. You can mention personal stories, right? If you had a parent who suffered from a disease when you were a young child and you have decided that you want to go into biotechnology or become a doctor because of that, that is a personal story that drives you. There is nothing wrong with that. If you are someone like my daughter who is 9 years old and who loves all things design related, and I think she's going to grow up to be an interior designer or a fashion designer, and it blows my mind that at 9 years old she puts things together and she loves colors and patterns and textures and fabrics. And I look at her and I think, who are you, right? Who are you? But when she is talking to people in 10 years or 15 years, she's going to be able to say, you know what? I knew at 9 years old when I redecorated my own room that this is what I loved, that this is what speaks to me, that this is what I care about, or that I'm driven by aesthetics and beauty in a way that no one I ever knew was. So absolutely, you can bring in personal stories. I encourage you to. And oftentimes with the why, by the way, it comes down to some personal aspect of you. What's driving you? Oftentimes that is personal. Okay, so let's move on, and feel free to continue asking questions because we'll take a few more as we get to the end. But I want to keep us going and really just take it home now and talk about our connecting the dots, right? So the question I left you with was, what's compelling about your backstory? And for each of you, it will be different. And that's why this pitch formula is so powerful, because even though we're all going to use the same formula, which is destination, backstory, connect the dots, every single person's backstory is unique to them. But let's now talk about connecting the dots, because this is challenging for some people as well. Connecting the dots is bringing it all together for me. So explaining how your future, your destination, and how your past, your backstory, all come together right now in the present. So this business venture provides a unique intersection of my passion for guava fruit with my previous experience at J&J. right? And I say that not even tongue in cheek. You know, if you love guava fruit more than anyone else, and you've worked at J&J and now you want to start a business, that's how things happen in this world. Whatever is unique to you. Or this is a logical progression from sales to marketing to brand management for me. Or I'm excited to take my skills and apply them to social enterprise in the Southeast. Or Tinder is a great fit for my creativity and passion for connecting people. Why not, right? Or this is a great way for me to leverage my hospitality experience at SoulCycle with an exciting new technology platform. It is your job to connect the dots for your listener. You don't want your listener thinking, I have no idea why you really want to go into investment management. Or, you know, you say you want to work in luxury retail, but I don't really buy it. I don't really know that you're so committed, or I don't really understand why you'd want to work for Estee Lauder or Chanel or L'Oreal. It doesn't really resonate. And here's the truth. Here is the deep-seated truth. The number one reason I don't love you when you're pitching yourself is that I don't believe your story. It's not actually that you don't have the skills. And here's the misconception, right? We assume that when we don't get the job or land the new role or get the promotion or raise capital, we assume that it's because we weren't qualified, and that's not true. The number one reason I don't love you and I don't hire you or give you that new opportunity or give you a raise or a promotion or invest in your business is not because you don't have the skills. It's because I don't believe your story. And I can tell you firsthand that I experienced this. In 2001, in October of 2001, so take yourself back in time. I know for many of you, you were just little pups. But it's October of 2001, and I'm interviewing on Wall Street to get a job at Goldman Sachs. And if you think back to the history of our country, right, this is right after 9/11. This was a terrible time to go into Wall Street. And so it's October of 2011, and I go down for final round interviews at Goldman Sachs. And I had a great day. I'm one of those weird people. I loved interviewing. Of course I loved interviewing, right? Because I love communicating and I love talking. And so I had an amazing day interviewing for my super rounds at Goldman Sachs. 10 two-on-one interviews, totally grueling, right? Not anything that most people love, but I had a great day. And I get a phone call that night from a partner in my group named Elizabeth Miley. And Elizabeth calls me from Goldman. And she says, hi, Jody, thanks so much for coming in today to speak to us. And I said, thanks, Elizabeth, for having me. And she said, well, here's the deal. Here's what happened today. She said, we interviewed 10 candidates today. We dinged 8 of them. We gave 1 offer, and then there's you. And I'm thinking, oh, God, this doesn't sound so good. And she said, here's the deal. Everyone really liked you, but they didn't really believe that you wanted to be an investment banker. And I said, Elizabeth, of course I want to be an investment banker, and Goldman Sachs is my absolute number one place where I want to work. And she said, well, let me ask you a question then. She said, would you be willing to come in for a second round of Super Day interviews? 10 more two-on-one grueling interviews. And I said, I'd love to, right? There's nothing I'd love more than coming back and doing 10 more two-on-one interviews. She said, all right, well, then let's schedule a second Super Day for you so that you can come in and really convince people that you want to be here. So we hang up the phone, and I'm perplexed, right? On one level, I'm thrilled I get to go back, and on another level, I'm dejected thinking, God, how am I going to do this? And I pick up the phone, and I call my dad. And my dad answers, and I said, Dad, you're not going to believe this. I said, I got a phone call from Goldman Sachs today, and they told me that they interviewed 10 people, they dinged 8, they gave 1 offer, and then there's me, and they don't know what to do with me. And my dad said, well, good for Goldman. You don't want to be an investment banker. And it was hearing him say that in that moment where all of a sudden I realized, you know what? This is exactly what I want to do, right? My competitive juices got flowing, and I went back down to Wall Street to 85 Broad Street, and I got the job. But here's the deal. I hadn't convinced myself in that first round of final interviews, I hadn't convinced myself that I wanted to be an investment banker. Until I bought into my own story, no one else was buying what I was selling. And so if you don't believe with every inch of your fiber and your being, right, what you're pitching, no one else is going to buy it, and they're not going to believe it either. So to the question earlier of how do you come up with the why, it has to be integral and intrinsic to you. You can't make this stuff up. You have to really think about why you want to do something. And by the way, I really believe that when you can't come up with a pitch, it on some level exposes that part of you which maybe isn't authentic and isn't true. And then, by the way, you shouldn't be a banker or you shouldn't be a consultant because you're not going to really do well if you're not 100% bought in. So the number one reason people won't love you, it's not because you don't have the skills, it's because they don't believe your story. So let's do our round two. I want you now to take a moment and I want you to revisit the high stakes conversation that you were having with someone at the beginning of our webinar today. And I want you to write down one bullet point each for your destination, your backstory, and your connect the dots. I'm going to give us about 60 to 90 seconds. Please lower your hands for everyone who's your hands up. Lower your hands. But take a moment now and write down at least one bullet point for what your destination could be, what's one thing you would talk about in your backstory, and how you would connect the dots. Take a moment, and then I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to regroup. All right, great. Thank you for indulging and participating. I appreciate it. And so here's my question. Now that we've gone through destination, backstory, and connect the dots, I want to ask you this question again. How did you do? On a scale of 1 to 10, right, how many of you raise your hand if your score improved? Okay, we're at 50, now we're at 60, now we're at 70 of you. Okay, now we've got 80. Let's see if we can get to 100. So at least half of us, now we're at 90. Numbers are continuing to go up. I'm so excited to see this, right? So we have fully 50% of you. We're close. We've got over 200 people on the line today, 250 of you, right? We've got at least 100 hands up that have said that your score has improved, which I am thrilled to see. And I would love you to type into the chat box why you think it improved or what the improvement was, right? What made it better the second time around or why? And while you're writing those in, and then I'll take a look and read them, I want to give you two little additional last pieces of advice. The first one is this is not a one-size-fits-all strategy. And so to the question that came up earlier, right, absolutely your pitch changes depending on where you are in your career and who you are talking to. However, the good news is that you can nail it, right? You can absolutely master this strategy with practice. All it takes is being really thoughtful and deliberate about what you want and why you want it. So you've got this. The thing is, though, you do have to practice. You can't assume that that pitch is going to come to you in the moment. And let's be clear, the pitch is not a monologue, right? It's not where we start off and we go into our destination, backstory, connect the dots. But the pitch is a conversation. And if you hook someone in with your destination, then they're going to ask you some questions. And that's when you get to go into your backstory and your connect the dots, when they say, tell me more. That's what's so compelling about this. So I'd love to hear, do me a favor and type into the chat box, right, some things that made this better. Let's see. I'm going to start to read some of these. Okay, so that was the old one, that it was on a whim. Let me get to the new one. More structure, more confidence in the details, knowing more about the story and why it's important. It raised my confidence considering a perceived, I lost it, hold on, because people are adding in. They're going down. Let's see. I can't find that one. Oh, it raised my confidence considering my perceived lack of skills in the field I want to enter. Thank you for saying that. That's amazing. I love it. Raised confidence given the structure. Not as scattered as my first try. My pitch was more passionate and authentic because it showed things I'm excited to do. Amazing. Pitch is more pointed. It makes more sense. It makes more sense now that I connected the dots. Let's see. That's awesome. Thank you. My second pitch was better because I started from a place of I'm unique and I have a vision for what I want to do. Awesome. Starting with the destination here, I love this, right? I structured the pitch in a way that every sentence points towards my destination. Thank you. These are great comments. I really appreciate it. This was amazing. I can't thank you enough. Oh, that's sweet. Got me thinking in the right direction. I'm excited to make it better. Instead of listening to the technical skills, I started thinking about my personal story. Thank you so much for those comments. I'm really, truly deeply grateful, and I'm thrilled to hear it resonated. So I'm going to open it up to questions, but before I do that, I just want to invite you all to makethemloveyou.com. If you like what you saw and heard today, I am doing a lot more online these days, getting with the program now that it's 2019. Actually offering a live masterclass tonight on how to make them love you at work, which is all around mastering daily conversations and sharing information about Be Great on the Job online. We have 2 courses we now offer online, which are asynchronous, super fun, mobile, social, bite-sized. One is Get the Job for those of you who are job seeking, and one is Be Great on the Job for those of you who are looking to take your game up a notch. So if you're interested, check out makethemloveyou.com. And then let's go back for the last 6 minutes and let's open it up to any additional Q&A that I wasn't able to answer for you. Arian, do we have any other questions in the chat box?
Sure. I was just going back and looking through some of those. So Natalie asked, with the Goldman story, how much do you attribute this to luck and how much to skill? Many times employers wouldn't give you a second chance to prove yourself and would instead just pass on you.
That's a really good question. I don't think it was luck. I have to say that when you're going through that intense of a process, what I'll say was great about it was Goldman had the perspective that they were interested in me because I was different, whereas there were plenty of other investment banks who looked at me like I was crazy for even wanting to become an investment banker coming from the Peace Corps, and so they passed on me up front. So I had final round interviews with let's say 4 or 5 banks, but I had double that number who didn't even want to talk to me. So I don't think it was luck. I think that given my performance in the first round of final interviews, it was strong enough for them to say, you know what, it's worth another conversation. But you are right. There are definitely companies that won't give you a second shot.
Spica asks, how much or what percentage of the pitch should be spent on destination versus the backstory?
That's a really good question. Here's the thing. If your destination isn't compelling, no one's going to ever find out about your backstory, right? No one cares about the backstory. The destination has to be compelling enough that I'm going to dig in and ask questions about your backstory. And the thing about your backstory is, that's the easiest part. We can all talk about ourselves, right? We all know what we've done and where we worked and what we've learned and what we're good at and what we're not. And if you don't have that level of self-awareness, then you need to spend some time on it. But I would say the destination is really the challenging part. The thing that's interesting about the backstory is coming up with the anecdotes or the slices of your life that are relevant. So you do need to spend some time thinking about it. It's not enough to say, I got my MBA or I studied biology. It's what about your backstory, right, is really interesting. What project were you really drawn to, or what experience with a really terrible boss made you realize that this is not what you want to do or this is what you want to do going forward. But the backstory is irrelevant if you can't hook someone in with your destination.
Another interesting one, a little bit of a different direction. How do you think about 2 pitches in one? For example, if you're pitching for a pay increase after your performance review, but you are also interested in perhaps getting some funding for your executive MBA program. Do you do it one or the other, or is it potentially for both?
I would say it's probably one or the other. I don't know that I'd go into a performance review with 2 big asks. I wouldn't ask for a raise and funding for an executive MBA program. I would potentially talk about my destination, which is I'm really hoping to get into a senior level leader role, and I think what would help make that happen is potentially getting my MBA. So I'd love to talk to you about whether or not the company would sponsor that and what I'd be willing to contribute and what I'd bring to the table and why I'm compelling and, why you should invest in me. But that to me sounds like a different conversation than, oh, by the way, I should also get a raise. So I would say think about it. You don't want to pitch two things at the same time. I think your message is going to get lost.
Good advice. The next one is it good enough that my destination is to go back to an environment I loved working in before? She mentions product development.
Yeah, absolutely. Your destination can be, no question, just because it's, and I wouldn't say it's, even if it's backwards in terms of you were there before, absolutely. If you want to go back to product development and you took a few years off to do something different, but you realize that product development is actually where your passion and interest and energy lies, then absolutely. There's nothing wrong with using that as your destination. Now, the challenge is going to be the why, right? You've got to convince me why you are good at it, why now is the right time, why leaving gave you perspective but made you realize that's what you really want to do. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. I noticed we had a comment related to this as well, but this is also a question. She's talking about figuring out your destination. If I'm struggling with figuring out my destination, how can I hone in on that? I thought I knew what it was, but it turns out I don't know. I think some of the things you were talking about kind of prompted them to say, maybe I don't know what my destination is.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So here's what I would say is play around with it. Try and craft a pitch for a destination. And if you really can't come up with the backstory and the connecting the dots, maybe that's a clue that, I'm not sure if I really want to do it. Or you put a stake in the ground and say, you know what, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to interview for some product development roles. Here's the thing, you have to buy into your story 100%. It doesn't mean that you have to be 100% certain that that's what you want to do, but you should be in the driver's seat. So I would say play around with some different scenarios, talk to different people, but when you are talking to them, don't let them know that you're not sure you want to do it. Sort of try it on, right? Make it be true that this is what you want and see how the conversations go. You can always be in a position to turn down a job or pivot after having these conversations if it really feels inauthentic to you. I think that helps you realize, you know what, actually maybe that's not what I want to do. So I would say experiment a little bit. The other question to ask yourself, which I always say, is I think about energy producing versus energy depleting. And something that you want to do that's going to come naturally to you and that's going to be fun and you're going to be great at is energy depleting. So hopefully in my voice, and I know we're at the top of the hour, we have to end, hopefully you hear in my voice a lot of enthusiasm and energy. I love being on the phone. I love talking to you about this. If I was really bored and disengaged or this was work for me, I wouldn't be as good at it. In fact, being an investment banker took so much energy from me because I wasn't good at it, right? That was not the right career path for me. Although I certainly don't regret doing it for 4 years, it was a piece of my story and it was sort of, I had to go through it, but it didn't create energy for me. It was really depleting. So Arian, I'll turn it back to you. I just want to say thank you to all of you online. I'm so overwhelmed and humbled by our attendance today. You are rock stars. Thank you for staying with me, for giving me 60 minutes of your very busy lives and investing in yourself. If you want to connect with me, LinkedIn is the best place to do it. You've also got my email and my website. And to Forte, to Arian and Jamie, thank you so much for hosting me, and I will turn it back to you.
Great. Well, Jody, thank you so much for all of your insights today. Recordings of this webinar and all of our webinars can be found at our website, fortefoundation.org, under the listing of Forte webinars. Thank you all for attending today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and thank you for completing the evaluation. We look forward to having you join us again next month. Bye, everyone.